My guest today runs a contemporary British furniture brand. They specialise in selling sofas that are designed and made in the UK. This is a sector we know very, very well. We've worked in it for many years, but it is a sector having a bit of a tough time right now. And my guest today, Nick, has joined me on the podcast because he wants to discuss his marketing challenges and also get my take on what I'm seeing in the wider sector as a whole and what are the digital trends and what he's seeing, and crucially, what he can then take and do in his business to further scale up his growth. It's going to be a fascinating conversation, this one. Let's get into it. Welcome to Grow With Evergreen, the podcast designed to help you grow your business by providing practical insights into all things paid media, creative and digital strategy. Every episode, we help home, garden and lifestyle brands with their growth challenges by delving into their business, dissecting what they're doing and defining a digital growth strategy they can take and deploy into their business. Let's get into it. So welcome back, beautiful people. I hope you're all doing fantastic. The sun is out as we're recording this episode. Finally, the sun has shone. Really interesting conversation today, this one. So the brand that's joining us is they're called the British Design Shop. They're a contemporary British furniture brand. All the product designed and made in the UK, which is fantastic. Some really beautiful product. 80% of their sales are sofas, and they are doing about $750,000 now in revenue. We go for about 5 years. And just speaking to Nick before we came on air, he has got some marketing challenges, and we're going to go through those today. But what he wants to do, and what I'm quite curious and keen to do myself, is just have a discussion around what's happening in the wider space, because we've worked in as you well know, as our listeners and viewers of Grow With Evergreen will know, as an agency, Evergreen, we only work in the home, garden, lifestyle space. So all of our brands are in this space. We've helped brands to market products for the home, such as sofas and beds and you name it, for many years. So we've got a lot of experience in this space. And, I'll be honest, the sector is having a tough time. Retailers in this space are finding it difficult. And I think that's just the reality of the economic times we're living in, and just how difficult the world can feel at times. So, and I think Nick, by his own admission, is maybe seeing that. I think most retailers are. That said, he's doing well. His business is growing. He's got 3 or 4 team members, doing about $750,000 in sales so far. And what we're going to get into and what we're going to discuss today are his marketing challenges, which he has outlined them as the first one being consumer confidence, which I think is such an important challenge, and one that it's a big topic, because there is a lack of confidence in this market. If someone's going to go and buy a relatively high-end sofa or furniture for their home, for their garden, that's a considered purchase. And when money's tight, people are thinking about it a little bit more. And we're definitely seeing that. We market lots of products for the home and the garden. And we are seeing, as a general rule of thumb, which we're going to discuss with Nick today, we are seeing acquisition is getting harder, getting more expensive. And one of the things we're doing to caveat that is doubling down on retention. So we're really focusing on, what do we already have? How do we get more from that? Because it is harder, gaining attention and acquiring new customers is becoming harder, is becoming more expensive. Second challenge is that channel strategy. So Nick's spinning a lot of plates. He's got a lot of different things going on. And then third one, maintaining and maximizing the ROI. His website's built on Magento. He's working across different platforms, and he's got some questions that he wants to ask. So should be an interesting one, this one. I'm looking forward to getting into it and seeing where the conversation takes us, and how we can. Well, I want to get a take from Nick in terms of what he's seeing and doing in his business, and I want to sort of overlay that on what we're doing with our various retailers in this space, and just sort of compare notes. So you get to come with us as we're going to do that. Right, let's get him on, shall we? Nick, my friend, are you there?
I am here.
There he is. Right. So how are you, my friend? You well?
I'm good. It's Friday.
Good. Great to have you on the Grow With Evergreen podcast. Thank you so much. I sort of gave a very brief intro there. Do you want to just give our viewers and listeners who you are and what is the British Design Shop? Over to you.
Hi there. Yes, my name's Nick. I am the founder of British Design Shop. I traveled the world, been a marketing director, product development guy for lots of different brands, and decided to set one up which is really sort of making the best of British manufacturing, British contemporary design, um, real focus on service, and sort of doing the right thing over the long term. Real emphasis on growing organically, step by step, as
Sure.
opposed to lumping in a load of funding and seeing where that took us. So um, set up the company with a number of sort of world class people, designers, factories, e-commerce specialists back in 2016,
Sure.
and we've been growing step by step. A huge amount of work just to get to the start line, but we're sort of 5 or 6 years in now, and yeah, starting to see uh, where it's going, but also sort of dealing with different challenges ranging from consumer confidence up and down,
Sure.
disposable income up, under a lot of pressure, but also seeing some real positive things, things coming up and things going down. So yeah, no, really interesting times, and we're growing. So despite sort of
It's good. Yeah. Yeah. Not many are right now. Yeah.
despite the
Absolutely.
challenges, we are growing. I'd say we're having to do a huge amount of work to grow. And I think if the market was a bit stronger, we wouldn't be having to do quite as much to get quite as much, if that
Yeah.
makes
You have to
sense.
work very hard for that every pound earned right now, eh?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so we're working hard. We're enjoying it. We enjoy our business. So whilst we work hard, we still enjoy it and do it with a smile on our face. Um, and yeah, we've opened a shop in Hove High Street recently, which is quite interesting as a different approach.
Sure.
And have had a shop in London for quite a few years.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. That's good. That's good. It sets the scene nicely. So, one thing we spoke about in before we came on air was you were keen to have a chat about just the kind of if we zoom out a little bit, the wider context of the market. Just unpack that for me a little bit, and any key questions. I just want to have that conversation before we then go into your specific marketing challenges. So, what is it you really want to understand and sort of get my take on from a sort of a wider perspective of the sector as a whole?
Yeah, I think there's two sort of aspects to this. I think there's strategic planning, and then there's execution of great digital marketing. And I think I like to come from strategic planning first and
Okay.
understand what's
Yep.
going
Yep.
on, and
Sure.
then drill down into great execution in order to sort of eke out, the turn the cogs, so to speak. So
Sure. Yeah.
I think from my point of view, some big things going on in digital, stuff around data and cookies and all that side of it.
Yep.
Also, there's a lot of new entrants that have been forced into buy clicks or to buy sponsored ads as a
Sure.
result of COVID, which has sort of forced everyone onto the market. So it's the bidding process is being run up in one way, and on the flip side of that, uh, the quality, the profile of the customer is under pressure because of the laws and the regulations and changes to iPhones and all sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
On the other side, so it's almost got sort of a real value pain point coming through on the paid ad side, which I think you know needs to be considered and
Yep.
discussed. So it's sort of money in, money out. The business side of it, I think, is important. Um, and I think on top of that, you've got consumer confidence, which is coming and going in in patches. So it's a real difficult landscape to really understand where digital is going, particularly when you have huge faceless organizations that are behind it, and really great and proactive digital marketing agencies that are sort of sat between the client and the metas of this world.
Yep.
um, and it's sort of trying to get a business perspective on where we think it's going, and then sort of from that, what can we do to counteract it? Is digital here to stay? Of course it is.
Yep.
It's not going anywhere. But the, the days of sort of starting a brand online and scaling it through paid Instagram ads, that seems a very difficult road to me when I look at it through people who are attempting to do that, and sort of what the business implications are for them over time.
Yep.
So I think the sort of really unpacking the pain points from a commercial perspective, I think, is just an interesting conversation.
Okay.
And then I think sort of from that position, what can be done to counteract. And just to just sort of throw one out there, I was speaking to a lot of sort of professional digital marketers recently, and I was like, you know, Instagram wants video, it wants lots of different things. What do we think the attention span is for a video on Instagram? And between us, we said, well, we think it's about 3 to 5 seconds. So you've got this sort of hyper state going on within sort of Instagram feeds, where everyone's sort of battling for attention. And how sustainable is that? How much content? How do you counteract it? So I think that those are sort of a couple of pain points that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
no, makes sense, makes
I think
sense.
it's good to get them out on the table and just sort of say, so what? What can we do?
No,
What? Yeah,
exactly. I've got some ideas, and I can give you some of my thoughts based on what we're doing as an agency. Because I think one of the benefits you get when you work for an agency side is you get to look at lots of accounts, so you get a different perspective because
100%.
you're not
Yeah,
just focused on a single brand, in a single entity. You're actually looking across, and so you can see trends, and you can just really look at the bigger picture, which is one of the beautiful things I love about running an agency.
well, you get this opportunity to cross migrate
Exactly that. Yeah.
and
Cross
see.
pollinate. Exactly.
Yeah,
So no. It's yeah, it is good. So I think there's a few, there's a few things there. I was just making some notes as you were talking, because I think it's a really great conversation, and I don't get to have many of these kind of conversations on the pod, which is really good. So this is going to be good fun. I think a few things just to kick us off then, because I absolutely agree and recognize that what you're saying about that strategic planning, and as well, and the digital marketing. I mean, obviously the digital marketing, paid media, that's my bag, that's our expertise. But we approach everything that we do for our clients from a very commercial perspective, and I don't think all marketers necessarily do. I think lots of marketers love to operate in their lane, and the solution to your problem is always what they do, and it's very much like we just need to get doing. We want to just do. And actually, my thing has always been, look, I'm not putting the cart before the horse. I am not going to prescribe before I've diagnosed. I am not going to try and run before I can walk. I don't know how many more analogies I can use, but I very much like to take a minute, zoom out, look at the bigger picture, not just for your brand, but as you say, that wider context. So we do that in a practical sense. We do that for all of our clients. Is before they come, we want to talk about Google, we want to talk about meta ads, we want to do this, we want to do that. We always say, well, hold on, what's the vision? So I think the first thing I would say to you, and something that is just, again, that we do for all of the brands we work with, is what is the vision for the brand? Where are we going? So what does success look like? What does the British Design Shop look like when it's finished? I think really nailing that down, being very clear what that looks like, is the first thing. Have you done that? Do you know what this business looks like in 5-10 years? Have you got that
yeah,
roadmap
sure,
laid
100%.
out?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have.
yeah,
Amazing. So that, you'd be amazed the amount of businesses that don't have that. So I think that's the first thing that we do. And I think having that, I think the other thing that I'm always mindful of, and I tell our clients, is that you kind of, I don't know who originally penned, this is not my phrase, but I don't know who originally coined this, but you are your own economy. So what's happening in the wider world, I think there's only so much control any of us have on that. And whether I'm talking as an individual, as a business, within a certain sector or niche, or the wider world. So to a degree, we can only control what we can control. And I think there's some practical things that we can do. And again, if we think about what we're doing with our clients to navigate these tough times, I think the consensus we're seeing and we've lived through is, the COVID years for it varies brand to brand, but generally was pretty good for a lot of brands, excluding some obvious sectors. I think 23 was a hard year, and 24 has probably been harder still. Is a general consensus, certainly from the brands we're seeing. Is we've got brands that are doing really well and are performing better than they have year on year, but we are, like you said, we are absolutely having to work so much harder, and get more creative, and really put things under the microscope more, just to maintain or marginally improve. So to drive
100%.
a 5-10%
100%.
year on year is
Yeah.
proving to be harder than it did a couple of years ago, for sure.
100% that's the case. Yeah, you're having to do more to stand still
Absolutely that. And we're
rather
seeing
than
that as a
rather than
blanket
sort of
across the board.
getting some, help from the market, so to speak. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely the case.
And
I think.
so things we've done again for on behalf of our clients is one of the reasons we introduced our creative services, because we will, we're providing ads and supporting them with all their paid media, and we're doing a great job in terms of the management of the account. But one of the pain points we had was that the creative just wasn't good enough, or we weren't changing it frequently enough, or we needed to raise the bar. And it's one of the reasons why we've introduced a whole creative suite to our offering, because we were like, we knew that's how we could make marginal gains. We knew how that could help us with retention, with customer loyalty, with getting, increasing that AOV, so the average order value, the LTV, the lifetime value, etc. So from a digital marketing perspective, that's what we've done. And that's similarly what we're advising our brands to do is, look, the market is the market. The customer, if they're reluctant to spend, if the confidence isn't there in the way it once was, then you've got to do more with what you already have. It's why I mentioned at the top, we've a huge part of our focus over the last 12-18 months has been on retention as well as acquisition, probably more so. The nature of digital marketing is all very much, and paid media is, we want more, more, more. We want new. But actually, when things contract, when things get tough, it's okay, let's spend more time and energy focusing on what we already have. And we're doing that with when it comes to creative, when it comes to how we're building campaigns and who we're targeting them towards.
I think I would say, looking at the sector from a sort of what the right thing to do is perspective, and sort of seeing it both as a company operating in it, but also seeing what other players are doing. And
Yeah,
I think if you take a very simple analogy of truck and trailer, brand positioning and execution,
sure.
um, brand positioning is forced to come out when you're under pressure, because you have to go left or right,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
because you have to sort of hang your hat on what you're going to do as a brand.
Exactly.
And I think what you've seen in the last 2 years is almost a parting of the waves between brands that are strong enough to sell something that has sort of quality and service and desirability behind it, and and brands that are going after volume through discounting. And there's
Yes.
been
Yeah.
there's been
Yeah.
like a almost sort of a parting of the waves between the brands. And we've not gone on sale at any point in the last 2 years, because we don't believe in it. And we believe in transparency of pricing, and there's a lot of sort of adding it up and taking it off, and one sale
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
rolls into the next sale, rolls into the next sale. So whether it's right or wrong is not really our place to say, but what you're seeing is behaviors of brands that are either sort of becoming more confident and taking a step back from, say, well, we make a really nice product at a fair price, that's what it costs, and we
Sure.
provide great service, that's what we do. Or it's sort of, a countdown clock with buy it on Friday and it's 40% off, and if you add this, you get that. And so I think there's a lot of sort of brand decisions being made because the brands are under pressure, which is a good
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
because it forces a decision. I think the other thing is a big difference between um, generic terms and sort of focusing and differentiating. And I think the cost players are just sort of going after generic terms and lumping volume into their
Are you talking about as in
website.
search terms, as in
Yeah,
proactive,
search
intent-based
terms.
marketing? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of going for sort of broad brush, being big like a juggernaut, and just sort of driving their
Sure.
brands
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
middle
Well,
of the
it's
market.
volume.
Volume,
Quality,
yeah, yeah.
quantity over quality, isn't it? Yeah.
And what we're finding, particularly towards the higher end, is that people are fatigued with sales. They've seen so much of it; it almost doesn't register anymore. And they're also a bit frustrated from a lack of service in general, from lots of different things. Their gas bill, from whatever. So I think sort of brand values are really under the spotlight. I think in the context of how that rolls out into digital execution, I think, are you a cost player, or are you a focused and differentiated brand, and what does that mean, and how do you go to market? And I think there is one of the defenses that enables an ROI to go up in digital marketing is to be focused and is to be, um, a differentiated service within a part of the market.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
uh, and I was listening to one of your recent podcasts, and I think you were talking about a garden company which were providing, high level service within garden irrigation systems,
Yes. Yeah.
irrigation
Yeah. Yep.
systems.
Yep. Yep.
And that's a real example of sort of David beating Goliath, because that
Sure.
person knew what they were doing in that very specific area, and was better than, say, a screw fix or a
Exactly
B&Q.
that. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So that I think there's some sort of there's comfort in niche, and comfort in focused
Yeah.
areas where you can, do what the other big boys can't do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think just to pick up on a couple of things you said there, I think, look, sales are not new. Discounting, particularly in this space, we've had and have had clients that fall into both of those camps. Some that
Yeah.
it's a premium product, we are not discounting, we don't subscribe to that, and then we've had other clients that have gone, yeah, that is part of our business model. So there's not one that's better than the other. We don't, as an agency, favor one or the other. It's what is right for that business and based on their business goal, their commercial objectives, and so on. So sales aren't new. Discounted isn't new. What you've described is not new. That's been happening. One could argue that it's happening more frequently now. I think in reality, I don't think it is. I just think the barriers to entry are and the routes to market are quicker and easier. So I think that's making it feel like, and there's market message and media, right? And it's become so easy now to get your message, in front of your market, via a plethora of different media. It's become so easy to do, and relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things. So I think that is just a reality of the world we're living in. It's not going to change. There's always going to be people that are going to pile it high, effectively sell it cheap. There's always going to be those brands that want to go after quantity with the quality as a secondary factor. That's fine. I think the key thing for your brand is you've set your stall up very clearly. You're a few years in now, and you've said, look, we are a premium brand. We're a premium product. The price point is reflective. It's that sort of higher value end, isn't it, in terms of where you position yourselves. And you've made the decision that's right for you to not discount and so on, which is fine. Absolutely stick by that. That is right. I think a couple of key things is, all brands need to decide whether they want to be big or boutique. And I think, boutique, depending on the sector, but boutique can still be a really fantastic business. Now, I don't know exactly what your plan is in terms of what this business looks like when it's complete, quote unquote, and what success looks like. But I think it's understanding what that business is. Are you building a boutique business? Is the British Design Group going to be boutique, or is it going to be big? And what does that look like? And getting that down on paper and being very clear on that, I think, is a really important thing to do, because we've got some brands where, so for example, the irrigation client you mentioned, we've worked with him for 3 or 4 years now. And he was a guest on our pod, and he was actually our very first guest on our pod, because we wanted to bring on one of our clients to showcase, look, this is what one of our clients is doing and has done. For him, he has been with us since the very, very early days of his business, where he was a tiny micro business. He's now building a boutique business, and he's doing incredibly well, and he's growing tremendously year on year. But what he has done, and is doing very, very well with our help, is he's building himself a brand. He has built himself a brand. And now he's starting to diversify the offering, because he's a few years in. But I think, for me, it goes back to a core point, and you sort of touched on it, is
No, I think
it's
if I
building
could,
that brand.
I think to come in on that, I think building complex Magento websites, launching 9 collections, opening shops, and spending lots of money on nice photography, video, etc., all at a level
Sure.
is not done to be a boutique business. But I think the main factor in our journey is we want to enjoy the journey of developing the company. So we don't want to go on a white knuckle ride.
Sure.
So for me, it's sort of what does our business look like? And I think there are milestones in our business. And I think
Sure.
a million turnover is the first milestone, which we will get to
Yep.
in the next few months, maybe a
Sure.
year. Then I think we've got a £3 million business, which is sort of the next step up from that. And then we've got a £10 million business. The
Right.
destination is a £10 million business,
Okay.
because in a £1.6 billion market, a £10 million business isn't a huge business. So when I look around me and look at brands that sort of close to my space, not exactly in my space, they're of that size. So it's completely realistic for our brand to be there at some point in the future. What I will control is how fast we get there and how
Sure.
much um, pressure we want to put the team under, which is what it boils down to go there, 100 miles an hour in sixth gear, or go there, sort of have a break, enjoy ourselves for a bit, and then step it up again, and then. So I think we're very much wanting to go on an enjoyable journey where we enjoy our customers, we enjoy our suppliers, our factories. We're all in it together. It's a sort of very much an old-fashioned partnership, open strategy, and we
Mm-hmm.
all win out of it. The factories do well out of it, the customer does well out of it, we do well out of it. So we see ourselves in this sort of 1 million, 3 million, 10 million blocks of work.
Yeah.
The bit that having sort of had the luxury of working across lots of brands in different states of development in my career previously, is you can stress a business and almost break it before it goes to the next level, and keep doing that, which tends to be kind of the venture capitalist model, which
Sure.
often
Sure.
sort of deconstructs and sticks it back together again. We're not wanting to go on that journey at all. We're very much enjoyable, recycling cash, not living with debt, and going down that road. I think the bit where um, I think is interesting is, what's the relationship between brick and mortar stores and digital, and how much is online and how much is in store. I think that's a really interesting sort of, where will we end up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the moment, I don't have the answer to that, but I'm seeing, very much an omni-channel opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when you say, is it a boutique business or is it a sort of a volume business? I think in luxury, customers want a boutique experience
Yeah. Well, that's and it's not and
at
in
scale, if that makes
exactly that.
sense.
No, and
Yeah,
in no way am I saying that if you're big, it has to be volume. Not saying that, but I think having that being very clear on what the vision is for the bit. Now knowing that the 1, 3, and 10 makes sense. At 10
yeah,
million, you at 3 million, you are going to look and feel like a boutique. At 10
yeah,
million, you're going to be feeling like a bigger business.
yeah,
As long as the business model, is nailed down, then that's fine. Look, I think because you're absolutely right. It is an omni-channel experience these days. You've got the digital, which is obviously my area of expertise, and then you've got the bricks and mortar store. Quite a few of our clients have physical stores, and then they do wholesale as well as the D2C stuff, the direct to consumer. Um, I think the key thing for me, I guess the biggest kind of most obvious thing that that you need to be doing is building the brand, isn't it? That's what's going to differentiate you. So if you think about others, not just in this space, but in any sector, if you want to not be in that race to the bottom, then you've got to stand for something. You've got to have that brand. So, and obviously it's all telling the story, building that narrative. As a brand, what do you stand for? What are you doing when it comes to that stuff that is really going to make you stand out? Because as you want to get, push past that 1 million and you want to get towards that 3 million,
yeah.
I know when we said before, you want to accelerate the pace to get to that 3 million a little bit quicker. With that in mind,
Sure.
I would
Yeah,
say
yeah. I think
the
it's
brand's going to
really,
be key to do that.
yeah. I think as somebody who's done 6 rebrands in their life, the question is, what is a brand? And a brand lives in the mind of the customer.
100%.
Um, and generally speaking, a brand is an emotional connection that is then sort of post rationalized under a number of brand pillars in the mind of the customer. So, um, when we started British Design Shop, we spent a year on our brand guidelines, going through, what are our brand pillars, what are the what's the emotional connection with the brand,
Sure.
and where I feel really motivated it is people love our brand. They don't just like it; they love it. So there is a emotional connection, and that is built around people wanting to support local manufacturing, people wanting to buy a product that lasts a long time, people wanting to maintain craftsmanship in their country. So
Sure.
Long Eaton has got some amazing skills, and as has the rest of the industrial areas of the UK. So that sort of national pride, national preconception is something that is front and center in our brand and our sort of commitment to pay the factory the right price. It sounds obvious, but we want our factories to be profitable and pay their workers a reasonable wage so they can pay their mortgage.
Sure. Sure.
So I think sort of the good in the brand, sort of the brand pillars of what we do, what we say, how we say it, are in a really good place.
It's just going to be amplifying that then, isn't it? To
And
keep the
I think another real simple metrics is 2 out of 3 people that walk into one of our studios buys, which is a massively high number. So I see the role of digital to get people into our studios more than to get people to convert a sale online, because what tends to happen in the buying process for higher value goods is once you get past 1,000, 2,000, you're into 4, 5, 6,000.
Yep.
The risk threshold is sufficient for you to
Of
get in
course.
your car and go and have a look. So I see this sort of partnership between digital as the sort of the dragging the customer in part of it, and the brand sort of sells itself once we get people in front of the product, in front of our people. And we're doing some different things. We're employing architects and interior designers at point of sale rather than salespeople. So you're not necessarily trying to close a sale. You're guiding and consulting a customer,
Yes. Yeah.
which is
Which is
very
great. That all
different.
ties back into the brand positioning
Yeah, so
piece.
I
Yeah.
think the sort of 360 degrees what the brand does sort of is set and is working. So I think the challenge for the brand building is to sort of get more people into it.
Yeah, to get more footfall,
Fundamentally,
exactly that. And
yeah,
I think, and that's where, as you say, it is. I mean, we see that we've got numerous clients and different products where it is a considered purchase, where they are not going to just go and buy. Not many people are going to just go and look at a sofa online and then spend 3, 4, 5,000. It's just particularly in this economic climate. So yes, having the stores, having the digital, and them combining it and thinking of it very much as an omni experience is absolutely what you should be doing. It's the obvious sort of way you would market the product. There's something that I want to just share with you, which is a sort of a concept that we've used for more than a decade. It's something I originally wrote many, many moons ago. And it's when you're thinking, it's digital specific, but it's when you're thinking about, and when you're looking at your own data and you're thinking about increasing that footfall, something to be really mindful of is what we call the backbone of digital marketing. It's a very simple concept and framework. We've got it on our website. It's a video series. And so I'll send it to you afterwards if you want to see it. But this is what it does. It gets you to think about, from your brand's perspective, how reliant are you on the different channels and platforms? So, and you may know some of this, you may not already, in terms of your own data. But when you're thinking about increasing, because ultimately what we're saying is great product, great brand, clear vision, which is great. So we're ticking the boxes, but it comes down to we need to get more footfall in the stores. We need to get more eyeballs on the brand. But we need to make sure they're the right eyeballs. So for me, from a very practical perspective, what I immediately am drawn to is, okay, what kind of visibility do we have right now? And have we covered the bases in terms of the different platforms, and I know you're running some ads right now and you're spending a few thousand on ads per month. But what I'd want to understand is, from a digital as a whole, how reliant are you on what we would call the backbone of digital marketing? What we mean by this is, as a brand, both now and over the recent years, how reliant is your brand on the traffic that you are buying? So that's any kind of ad that you're running, and you apportion anything we're buying to gain visibility, traffic and sales, we put into a bucket. Then we look at what does the traffic, the visibility, the sales look like that we own. So that's our brand. It's repeat, it's returning. Anyone that knows of us, that is coming back, that is buying again. You said you've got the cross sell, the upsells in place, and you see that with they buy the big purchase, then they bolt on the extras, which makes all the sense. Again, we see that for our clients. So think about and isolate the traffic that you own. Then look at the traffic that you nurture. So that nurturing is all those people that you're nurturing through the sales. So that's your social medias, your email, all of the traffic where you're building a relationship, you're building that know, like, and trust. And then the last one is the traffic that you earn. And that's your SEO. When you exclude brand and you look at your brand as a whole and you say, well, how visible are we organically when we exclude the brands? So how many people are searching Google, but they don't know of us, but then they land on our website? If you break your traffic and your visibility and your sales, and you do the number crunching on that, and you look both now and historically, you'll be able to see just how reliant you are on those different channels. And once you know that, you can then forecast ahead and say, well, okay, if I don't know, a third of our traffic or 20% or whatever it might be of our traffic is coming in via this channel, what do we need to do to grow to pass that 1 million, to get to that 3 million beyond? Where's the growth going to come from which channel? And it also allows you to overlay on top of it which channels are working best, which is driving the most footfall, etc., etc. So that as a concept, it ensures that as a brand, you can be very clear on which channels are working, which platforms are working. But at the same time, you can make sure that you're not growing. And just what we see so many brands do is they just want to grow. And they just ever increasing the reliance they have on a specific channel. Maybe it's a Google ads or a Meta ads. And this feeds in. The reason I want to talk about that is because that feeds into some of the discussion we were having before around you're seeing, or you're worried you might see diminishing returns when it comes to your ads. You sort of hit a bit of a glass ceiling. You invest, but when you then start to scale that up, you start to see diminishing returns. Does that sort of make sense and
It
resonate?
makes a huge amount of sense, and it's sort of exactly, it describes our sort of last 5 years journey, to be honest. Because when we started, we went full on into Instagram, Instagram split testing.
Sure.
You then find it likes a certain product in a certain size and a certain color, and that gets all the money. And then you find your order book, it looks very much like what Instagram likes.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly that.
And so you go, how do we get more from Instagram? Well, we'll take the one it likes in the color it likes and just keep lumping more money on it until the thing sort of blows up. And sort of luckily, having sort of been around more mature companies prior to having my own, I was like, this isn't healthy. It's not healthy to, keep giving money to one channel to get to sell the same thing.
Exactly
But then
that. Yeah.
sort of repeats, because you end up just sort of being totally reliant on one thing and one product that one thing and one channel likes. So we've sort of always safety checked ourselves a little bit and go, we're in this business for the long run. Let's keep launching different products. Let's keep trying, different products on Pinterest that we try on Instagram. I think the bit that which I would say that this sort of recent post-Ukraine, lack of consumer confidence, or on-off consumer confidence, I would call it, is enabled us to do is to make some tough decisions. So, for example, we've said, well, we're not going to put all of our money in Instagram. If that's successful, we're going to take a certain amount of our money and test other channels. So, long story short, we're deliberately becoming and wanting to become less dependent on paid advertising.
Good. Yeah,
And
that's
that's
good.
And
Do you know the current reliance you have as a percentage, roughly?
I would say in our first 2 years, 100% reliant.
Wow.
In our first 2 years. Then we open a shop, and then you sort of build around your first shop. So then you've got different sort of things to pull on and learn from. And now I would say, now we've got 2 shops. One is a bit more footfall-y. One's a bit more personal shopping. The London one is a bit more personal shopping.
Sure.
Because that's the nature of traveling around London and that scene. The what we're finding is my worries are going down as digital marketing becomes harder because it forces you to do other things.
Yeah.
Um, the bit that I still sort of and I think it sort of goes back to the question: is digital marketing here to stay? Of course, it is. There's still lots more to be done to optimize it. And I think that's where you know we will always be reliant on the skills of a digital partner to
Sure.
help us navigate that through those waters. And it's a combination of sort of our ideas and their ideas and both talents that will optimize it. And be brave enough to test things.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to test, you've got to experiment. I think as I say, that concept, that backbone of digital marketing will ensure that you don't want to, because you absolutely don't, as the old cliche says, you don't want to have all of your, in the same way you don't want to have all of your business coming from one customer, you don't want to have all of your traffic and your sales coming from just one source, and that works both within digital marketing. So within digital marketing, you want to have a percentage that's coming from paid, a percentage that you own, i.e., you want to see your brand building in visibility and traction. You want to have be nurturing those channels, the social media, your emails, so people that you're building a relationship with, particularly for a high consideration where someone might be redesigning their home and thinking about this 2 years in advance about that statement piece of furniture for their lounge. You need to build a relationship with those people. So you need to make sure that you're doing that via social and email. Then you've got the organic visibility. And again, that is where you really focus on, well, what do we stand for? What's the brand? What's our USP? What's our positioning? And if you do that well, of course, there are going to be others that are doing the same or similar, but it's going to be far easier to really staple your colors to the flag and say, that's what we're going after. So, but that's all within the confines of digital marketing. There's then the bigger piece further still, which is then, right, what role does digital marketing overall play alongside the bricks and mortar, so the physical
Yeah.
stores, alongside the wholesale for some of our brands and so on. So there's kind of two levels of it. There's, as a business overall, how reliant is our brand on digital versus this channel versus that channel, and then at the same time, or within that, from our perspective, we then look at the digital and go, right, let's now break that down and understand from a digital perspective how reliant we are on the different channels. But I think it's going to come back to that brand piece. And I think the questions that you put in your original application were around that consumer confidence and are we seeing diminishing returns? What are you seeing? And just paint a
Yeah,
picture
yeah,
for me in
yeah.
terms of your ad. What are you spending? What are you returning? And how has that
So,
fluctuated and
so,
changed?
so I'm seeing two things. I'm seeing uh, profile deterioration as we spend more. So, if we say take a successful product and it's getting X pounds per day, let's just say it's getting 40 quid a day or something like that. If we give it 80, you don't get double. You get sort of the bell curve is
Yeah.
disappearing quite quickly. So I think you can't just buy more ads to get more orders.
No,
That
just
that
on that,
doesn't work. Yeah.
I want to stop you on that. So just in terms of, I know you just said that off the cuff, but specifically, what have you done? I mean, are we talking Google ads, and have you done that kind of thing of just doubling the budget? Like, what
Yeah,
have you
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
done?
I've done on Instagram paid ads, doubled budgets. So if we've had a little bit of a really positive month, I'm like, okay, let's double up. Let's just go across our best ads and put double the money in,
Okay. On
and
what
see what it.
platforms?
Uh,
Instagram, Google.
Instagram, Google, and Pinterest,
Okay.
and
And
they all
how
kind of
long,
do.
when you
They all,
do that,
yeah,
I just want to just hold you on this. When
yeah,
you've done that, how long have you left those ads running?
3 months.
And give me an idea of what a budget might have been, and then you've moved it to in terms of actual.
£2,000 to £4,000
So
per month.
you would go from £2,000 what a month, or what is that budget?
Yeah, £2,000 a month paid ads to £4,000 a month
So you
paid
just
ads.
go and
Yeah.
what types of campaigns are you running? Are you running? Yeah, what sort of ads are you running on those campaigns?
So we probably would have done 10 different creative routes, and then we would run them for a period of time, and then see which ones are engaging, and then from those, take those forward. But that would be a combination of video, combination of stills, combination of might be an influencer describing a product, which we then sponsor. So quite a few different sort of
Okay.
creative executions. And the way I see it, it's a little bit like sort of starting 6 horses in a race, and you bet on the one
Of
that sort
course,
of
yeah,
gets
no,
over
it
the
makes
first
sense.
two jumps.
The thing that makes me nervous with doubling a budget,
Mm,
we wouldn't do that. We would, with any kind of ad, with these algorithms, whether it's Meta, fake Google, it doesn't really matter. When you get a campaign there's a lot of depends on how it's set up and the types of, there's a lot of nuances to it. But as a general rule of thumb, once you get a campaign that's working, that's delivering a good ROI, it gets into a rhythm. So if you go and double a budget, that can fundamentally change, and that algorithm needs to relearn.
yeah,
And it's, so a far better strategy would be to incrementally grow those accounts. So if you see it working, dial it up. As a rule of thumb, 15-20% increase is where you should be going with this. If you were to do that, you probably wouldn't see these peaks and troughs. And that's without seeing the accounts. I could tell you
yeah,
far more if
yeah,
I actually had a look at the accounts. But
yeah, sure, sure.
you shouldn't be, we would never do that, double a budget, because we know effectively these algorithms would throw their toys out of the pram. And you particularly, I don't know if you like with Google as a prime example, if you go and do that with Performance Max has an 8 to 12 week lead time typically. So
Mm.
you do that, you're going to upskill your account for the best part of 3 months before it even stabilizes and gets to a new normal of, okay, I can restabilize at this level. And now you move then into the marginal gains. So I would definitely, be steering
And I,
clear
and I,
of
and I
doubling
think
budgets.
I think to some extent, to go from 2,000 to 4,000 is equivalent to half a page in a magazine. So we're still, in my mind, and maybe this is a bit sort of broad brush, testing when we're doing that. We're like, well, what does that do, and what does that do? But um, I think there's two. I think there's two things that are obvious at the moment. One is there's only so many people in the pond that are actually buying, um, and therefore you've got to go. You've got to go and get those people and drag them in. That people that are actually buying things, rather than people who are looking at things at this moment in time, and therefore to get a return on investment, you need buyers and not lookers. Well, and it's obviously good to get people through the website, but just buying lots of traffic is just all that's doing is reducing your engagement rates, your conversion rates.
Yeah, well, that's where it's going to come down to your audience signals and the data. Are you loading your customer lists up back up into the website? Are you doing retargeting? This,
Yeah, not we're not doing a huge amount of Google ads, to be honest, because we're more at the desirable end of the market. Pinterest and Instagram, which is a picture driven engagement as
yeah,
opposed to
yeah,
a
yeah,
word
yeah,
driven engagement, tends to work better for our type of brand.
yeah. I mean, that makes it. Are you doing retargeting on those platforms though?
Yes, we are. Yeah, so we
You are.
do. I think it's a 5-day and a 30-day retarget.
Okay, but I mean, and you'll know this, but the key thing with Meta is, and Pinterest, it makes a lot of sense. With the difference with say Google Ads is you've obviously got that search intent, which you don't have
Mm.
when it comes to paid social, is because they're not actively looking. So you needed to capture the person at the exact moment when they just happen to be thinking about, do you know what, our sofa is looking a bit tired, we need a new one, or we're moving, or we're just doing a renovation, or whatever. Whereas for me, if this was my brand, I would be doing that because I think you're right on the price point. But if I've got stores that I need to drive footfall to, I would be doing localized, geographically targeted. I'll be adding in my audience layer in there to get the right sort of, affluence
Mm.
and customer demographic. I would be doing Google Ads because there's search intent behind that. I'm actively looking.
And I think we've gone sort of, me personally, I've gone full circle on Google, because sort of in the early days, I gave up on them because, someone gives you a call and just sort of tells you just need to spend money and take money. But once you actually get into the science of it with a proper digital agency like yourselves, there is fruit in there if you go at it a certain way, like you
Yeah,
say,
of course.
local, the right demographic,
100%.
long string strategies.
Yeah, what you're not going to do is just run ads UK wide and bid on sofas.
No,
That's what you're not going to do, right?
you,
That's a very easy way of wasting money. But if you've
exactly.
got, if you have a clear customer avatar in your mind, you've got stores in London and then in Hove as well. You would set a target radius. You'd probably bid adjust for the more affluent areas around your target market. You'd then feed in your audience signals, and you would use your organic and your existing data to really lean you into the sort of the nuanced and very specific search terms of how people look. Then you'd add in your audiences. Then you'd add in your different types of creative and your different messaging. And then you'd experiment, you'd split test.
Yeah, I
To
think
me, I think the big thing for me, if this was my brand, I would be, whether it's Google Ads, but you need some search intent there, because otherwise you are relying on, you could have the best product in the world, but unless I'm actively looking for it, I am
yes.
not interested in buying a sofa. You could have the best looking sofa in the world, but if I'm just like, my head is not in that space, which for social to a large degree, I mean, you can do stuff with social. Obviously, you can target recent movers, and there's lots of things you can do, and I hope you are doing that, but I'm still not actively looking.
I think also it's worth looking at the buy-in cycles. If you're buying a really good, well-made sofa, you may be only buying one every 5 years. So,
Exactly that.
do you want to build brand awareness for 4 years and 11 months time? Probably not. So, I think, really good steer on that. And I think my sort of learning, which is half of the knowledge, and I'm still looking for the other half, is, Google has a lot to offer if you go at it with a very scientific focused approach.
Absolutely. It's like
And
anything. Yeah, you need expertise. You need to as you say, have a clear strategy and a clear plan, not just go at it broad brush.
because if you do, you just go like buy the word sofa nationally and put money on it, you're going to lose your shirt. So,
Of course you are. No, exactly that. And then that's, you've got to be very, very specific.
yeah.
And you've got to, this stuff does not need to be overcomplicated. But I think, in terms, and what I'd be doing if this was my brand is I would be defining, you've got the business as a whole. So you've got to go, right, our overall digital strategy and reliance is X, then our, the bricks and mortar, and then the this and the that, and so on and so forth. Within the digital, you then got to look at everything and actually say, right, how reliant right now are we on paid ads? What's our current marketing investment? What level of return are we getting? What is our go-to-market strategy when it comes to increasing our brand visibility? Because that's always going to be the best quality, highest converting, best retaining customers and traffic that you can get. You're going to need a nurturing strategy. So you're going to need to have what are we doing with our email flows, with our social media and so on. You're going to then want to have a clear strategy for earning that visibility, which is your SEO. That is, how do we exclude brand? How do we increase our visibility and become synonymous, which taps into the brand. So you're building the brand, you're building your authority, and doing that with a consistent theming. I mean, we've had a look at your blog. You need to be doing that with core topics that are tying back to a central theme. I don't necessarily think that's happening right now. And you sort of define those different strategies, and they're all then feeding in to to the overall goal. But for me, based on the fact that someone is going to be looking, and you don't know when someone might be looking because they think, right, this weekend I want to go out, I want to find a store because we've just moved, or we're moving next month, and we need to find a new statement piece of furniture. You're equally going to have people that are maybe thinking a year or two out, because they're planning something or they're looking ahead or whatever. So you're going to want to be, again, another thing you can do with the ads is you can run very targeted. So we've done exactly this for our clients that we work with, is very localized ads with a call to action to drive footfall into the store. They then make a point in the store of capturing their data. They get added to the email list, and then they nurture them with pure added value, which comes from the channel that they're earning. So that is they're feeding them guides and resources on how to do this and how to do that, and all the things that they would need to know, thinking about the wider context. So if you use this scenario, if you're thinking about someone moving or buying a new statement piece of furniture, all the thought process they're going to go through, the journey they're about to take, have that mapped out as a sequence. You don't know at what point it's going to resonate for which customer at which time. But if you have all that mapped out, and then you get that content in front of them through a combination of nurturing, so your email, your social, through your retargeting, you're just, as a brand, you're staying top of mind.
Yeah,
But you'll
I think
notice the paid media was the kicker for that, because it was putting your weight, getting your hand in there, saying, "Hey, come to our store." So your ads, that's the other thing to remember as well. Your ads don't have to be just, "Here's our product, come, buy that product now." It can actually be, you can use paid ads when there's that search intent to drive footfall at the store, to capture data.
yeah, that's a good insight.
Yeah, I think there's so much you can do here, because I think, as you say, it's, there's a lot of money sloshing about, right? That,
Mm,
as tough as the economy is, and all this, we're our own economy,
yeah,
and we've got to have a clear brand, be clear on what we stand for, and then use. That's why I advocate this mix of channels, because look, I sell paid media marketing for a living. I still don't advocate to anyone ever saying, "Oh yeah, what you need is just paid media."
grow,
I'll go,
grow your business based on recycling paid ads. You're going to go bust.
exactly. You've
Yeah.
got to, have that, but you've also got to have all the other, I like multiple irons in the fire.
And really simply, like if you take most sensible P&Ls, the marketing spend in there is sort of 7 to 15%, something like that. It's in that
Yep,
sort of
yep, yep,
area.
yep.
And if a paid ad ROAS is 5, is a better one, that's 20% of your P&L. So even if you wanted to do it, the economics of it don't make sense.
For some, again, there's a lot in there. It depends on your margin, depends on all of your
Exactly, yeah.
business
But
numbers,
in
and that's, again, a big thing we do. Just sorry to interrupt, is look at the AOV, so the average order value, as well as the LTV, crucially. So, but yeah, there are certain products, and based on your margin and your positioning, that will work
100%, yeah.
better
If
than
you if you
others.
if you have a margin that supports that,
Yeah,
and it generates cash, and it's a positive sort of recycling of cash, then 100% that's viable. But generally speaking, in furniture ecosystem, it's sort of 2.4 multiples as a sort of an industry norm as a margin, which, take the VAT off, post delivery, gets you sort of something around about 40%. So
sure.
yeah, to have ads stood in at 20% of that 40%, with everything else you've got to pay for, just doesn't fly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Which
you've
is
got
exactly why you might need to use it as a means to an end, but you
exactly,
don't want to become over reliant on it.
and
Exactly that.
I think that's a real learning for us in our early years. Whilst we're small and getting started, it's great to use that channel to get going and to
Sure.
get your brand out there. But if you're in the business for the long term, you've got to build an
You've got to
ecosystem.
diversify. You've got
Yeah,
to diversify. You don't want all your eggs in one basket, right? It's exactly
yeah,
that.
100%.
Nick, I want to get in, just quickly run through some of your questions. I think some
Yeah.
of them we've already covered, just as we're finishing up now. So the first one was reasonable return. What is a reasonable return on ad spend in terms of turnover generated in the current market? What is return on ad spend? Return on ad spend. Do you mean just what's the ROI, what's the ROAS on accounts we're working on?
Yeah, it's just I sort of listen to lots of sort of discussion in this area. ROAS is the terminology which is
ROAS
used.
is the sexy term that everyone loves to
Yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Which
yeah.
is return on ad
And
spend.
it's generally people say, I've got 2, I've got 1, I've got 5. And I just look at all of those numbers and go, it's still a huge proportion of your P&L. So I guess the question is, what sorts of number ranges are achievable and what are you
Yeah.
seeing?
I think it depends. So the classic marketer's answer, which I hate to say, is it depends, but it really does. So the key thing, and I think we spoke on this before we came on air, but the key thing you should be doing on, particularly if you run any search ads, is splitting out brand versus non-brand, because your brand, should be huge. That should be like printing money. We've got
Yeah,
accounts running at 15, 20, 25 times ROAS.
yeah,
So for, because it's brand, so people know
yeah,
that they're searching for it, which, that should be like printing money. When it comes to, if you set things up correctly and you're excluding brand, it's very much a client by client, account by account basis. As an average rule of thumb, if I think of average returns, I think most of our clients are between 3 and 7 the return.
yeah,
And for some clients, if you said to them, I can get you a 3 or 4 times ROAS, absolutely that would not work. They just would go, well, the margin doesn't allow. We can't, even with an LTV, we cannot factor that in.
yeah,
Whereas other clients, Absolutely. They say as long as you can hit a 3.2, 3.5, 4, whatever it is, 4.5, that works for my business. When I factor in all of the other things, I can
Yeah,
make
yeah,
that work because
yeah.
I know the value of the customer. So it does depend. It also, but we have seen it where certain products and certain average order values make it very, very difficult. It's not to say it can't be done, but it makes it very difficult because if the order value is basically, if your average order value, as a general rule of thumb, this wouldn't apply to you, but for those listening and watching, if you're running Google ads and your average order value is probably under about £40, Google ads in the current climate, with the fact that Google's increased their prices twice in the last 12 months, and the fact that everything's getting more competitive and Shopify have just made it a million times easier to launch a website, with all of these things factoring in, if you're selling, if your average order value is less than 40 or 50 quid, Google ads is probably going to be quite a hard nut to crack. It can be cracked, but it's going to be quite tight and your margins are going to be quite tight. If you've got a product which average order value is 80, 100, 200, 500 and beyond, then you just have more runway, you have more to play with, and that can become easier, again, depending on the niche, depending on the product.
Yeah, I think the one thing which where digital marketing is a massive step forward from where marketing was, which was sort of like half your money you spend, you're not really sure what it does, and
Yes,
you
exactly
sort
that.
of
Yeah.
you explain that away at a quarterly board meeting and go, oh, we've always done that, we need to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think the accountability of digital is a massive step forward. I think where I'm sort of going with my brand on this is, what is the value of a customer walking through the door? And reverse engineering out of that, because we know what we
Yeah.
convert
Yeah.
once they're here. So I have a value that I put on what the value of an appointment is, for example. I have
Yes.
a
Yeah.
value of
Exactly
what
that.
a value of a fabric sample request is, because I know how those sort of roll up in my P and
Yeah.
L.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think to some extent I sort of almost need to reverse engineer my future business ecosystem and say, well, can Google give me X appointments for Y amount of money? Or
Yeah.
can Pinterest give me X amount of fabric requests for Y amount of money? And I think it's having more than one lever to pull on with all those competing channels to sort of know which way to go within the ecosystem.
Yeah. Exactly that.
And
Exactly
I'd
that.
say sort of, if I was to answer my own question, on pure ad spend, it needs to be nearer 10 than 5, for example, because that stands you in a 10% P&L, which if you've got a sensible marketing budget between 7 and 15, it sort of
Yeah.
it
I
starts to look.
advocate a 10 to 15%. That's exactly, I've done that for years. Is 10 to 15% is, I've said it on other podcast episodes, is you should be advocating. If you're aggressive, then up to 20, but 10 to 15% is standard. Yeah, absolutely that.
So I'd sort of say, answering my own question, and that's really been helpful being part of this podcast, because you force yourself to answer these sorts of questions that you live in the sort of ether around you, but you never really sort of ask yourself the question. And I'd say for us, it's probably a ROAS of 10 is what we're after. Which
ROAS
makes
or a lifetime value. Yeah, in fact, I think you've got to factor that in.
yeah, maybe a ROAS on
I think a
specific
ROAS of
parts.
10's ambitious.
Yeah, and it may be on specific parts that do specific things, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and that's the other. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. That's the other thing. Is not all of this. Does it have to be a all things to all people? We're going to go everything. It's being very, very, very focused. And don't get me wrong. I think you could start out like you said, the reverse engineering thing of how many people do I need in the store to get the number of swatch requests, this and the other, which in turn will give it that. Yes, absolutely should be doing that 100%. Starting with the 10 is good, but I think you're not going to get that 10 initially. So you're going to have to
No,
go
no.
through an experimental phase, 6-12 months of really refining what and who and where and why. And then you probably can get 10. We've got accounts that are quite happily running at 8, 9, 10 times ROAS because we're going after a very subset of the market with a very, specific set of products and so on and so forth. So it can absolutely be done. And it's good to be clear on what success needs to look like. But it's going to take you some time to get there. But I do think if you take anything away from this part, I think I would be considering Google Ads just because you've got that intent. But don't think you need to be all things to all people. Go niche. Use your data to tell you how people are searching and what they're looking for, and then localize that thing. Localize it. Clear offers to drive footfall to the store. That's what I'd be doing.
and just sort of without sort of, I know you've not had access to the data, and you probably want to do a scientific approach on that. But what does Google Ads need as a budget broadly to sort of per day to know what it's doing?
I think again, it's going to depend on the cost per click. I think it's going to, but I mean, look, if you just use common sense, right? If you've got a £1,500, if you've got a £1,500 budget, that's 50 quid a day, right? So
Yeah.
that's not going to go very far if your average cost is £4 or £5, particularly if you're targeting London. So if you go to if you're spending 3K, it's £100 a day. So I just kind of look at it from common sense. I would do some math. I would do some number crunching, and I would say, look, on average click. Because you could, again, what I would do is use that where you said, look, for every 100 customers or every 10 customers I get in the store, I get 2, whatever leads or whatever I get. Okay, if I need to get so how many clicks, and you're gonna have to do a little bit of guesswork in this, but how many clicks do I need to get to drive someone in store? Okay, well, for every 5 clicks localized, I get someone in store. For every 10 clicks, okay, well, based on the average CPC, how many clicks am I going to need to get to drive me those 10, 20, 30 people that I want in my store every day, every week, or whatever it is? And then you can sort of reverse engineer it backwards. Then once you've got that number in mind, I wouldn't necessarily start with that, but I would get some way towards that number and start very focused. And the key thing to do then when you're rolling that out is don't spread that budget across too many campaigns, because otherwise you're further diluting how much your ads will appear and then not appear. You won't get statistically significant numbers to be able to draw any conclusions, and it will just take you longer, and you'll then come to the conclusion it doesn't work before you've given it a fair crack at the whip.
Can I just ask one last question on Google Ads, because it's an
Yeah,
area
go
where
for it.
we're relatively new at it. We're pretty established on the sort of the visual led channels, but we're not so established in sort
Sure,
of
go for it.
PPC. So I saw some clicks going through, and we were paying £4.50 a click, £5 a click,
Sure.
and I was like, blimey, well, what are we doing? This is so expensive. Because you sort of, if you're used to paying 50p a click, why are we giving something that historically has not yielded in comparison
Yep.
10 times the cost per click? Is my intuition incorrect? For example, is it okay to let a click cost £5, 10 quid, whatever, as long as it gets you the right client?
Look, if someone, so I think I could throw that question back at you, right?
Yeah.
So if someone is gonna, how many people walking through the door does it take to get you a customer, and what's that customer worth to you? So if a customer is potentially worth, a £3 purchase,
Our average transaction is £3,000.
right,
If you take a typical gross margin of, or even if you did it as a net profit at 10%, that's
sure,
£300.
right.
So we convert 2 out of 3. So I've always said that an appointment is worth at least £100.
Right. So if an appointment's worth £100, what you've got to think is how many clicks, if they are localized, if they're targeted, will it take to get you? Let's say you could get, I don't know, if you got
Well,
one in.
you could almost pay £20 for them. If you take that
Sorry, say
mindset.
that again. I missed that.
If you take that mindset, you could almost say, well, 5 really good local people, if they cost me 20 quid.
Exactly. Well, you're not going to get every click's going to turn into someone walking through the door, of course. But if you can exactly that.
The conversion rate on appointments is probably 1%, something like that. So you probably
Fine.
need to.
So you're going to see, but yeah, the reason you're paying a premium for those clicks on Google versus say Meta, and you're paying the difference between 50 pence and £5, is because of the intent. Because on Meta, for all the will in the world, you don't know that someone is looking for your product. With Google, if you target it well, if you localize it, and if you have clear calls to action, clear ways of tracking and measuring that, and you then very attentively manage that, so you're monitoring your search terms, you're really on it, you're making sure that it's very, very well managed, makes all the sense in the world. Because if you could say, okay, am I happy spending £5 on a click if after 5-6 clicks I can get someone into the store? Yeah, that would probably make sense.
Yes, yeah. So I think that's really sort of really helpful insight, and really appreciate that.
Good. It's been good fun. We've gone quite deep onto this. I've quite enjoyed it. I don't get to do this very much on the pod, which I've quite enjoyed.
We've gone brand, we've gone
we've covered a lot.
We've gone into all the different bits of digital, our ROAS, No, it's been a great chat, and I really appreciate it.
Good. Well, Nick, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on, my friend. So thank you so much. It's been really good. We've covered off a lot. Hopefully, I've given you food for thought there on a couple of fronts. Keep us posted how you get on, and thank you again so much for being on, my friend. We'll leave it there. Yeah, you look after yourself. Take care.
Take care. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Nick. All the best.
Cheers,
well,
bye.
there you go. That was Nick. That was quite an involved conversation. I quite like that. I felt we got quite intense on that, which was really good. But fascinating, actually, that he's not doing the Google ads and very much on Meta. And I think, what we're saying about that intent-based marketing, whether it's Google, whether it's Bing, that is what's so powerful. It's why so many brands rely on Google ads. They use Google ads because there's intent. People are actively looking for what you do. Of course, you've got to set it up well. You've got to have clear calls to action, great messaging, great product, great service. But if you have all those things, if you can get your product in front of the right people when they are searching, it's a game changer. I think it could be for Nick, and I'm sure it could be for a lot of you guys watching and listening along to this pod. So if you're not doing it, maybe think about it, maybe look into it, but make sure if you do, you get an expert in your corner, whether it's Evergreen or whether it's someone else. It doesn't really matter so long as it works for you. I'm going to leave this one here. It's been a long day. I've had a lot of fun today. And again, my thanks to Nick and to you for watching and listening along. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.